Let me burst your bubble. You are not a sigma male. You are not an alpha, and you're not even a beta male either. Alpha, beta, and sigma males, these are just fancy sounding words that people use to describe different types of men. But let me tell you a secret. You don't need to fit into any of these categories to be a great guy. You're unique, and that's what makes you awesome. Everybody has their own strengths and weaknesses. The truth is that you, yourself, may not be amazing at a lot of things. Nobody is great at everything. There will always be somebody who's better at something, but you yourself, I bet you're probably amazing at some things that other people are not. Find your own strengths and define your weaknesses, and be the best version that you can be. Be the best man that you can be. If you're one of the poor men who's been swayed by the manosphere of pseudoscience, of inspirational or motivational channels telling you who you need to be to attract women, pause for a moment and watch this, because I hope by the end of this video you will be able to cast aside all that bullshit and finally feel free to be a man you are always meant to be. Because the concept of archetypes based on some made-up hierarchy doesn't make any sense. The positions in hierarchies are jobs and posts within societal structures or within companies. They're not some inbuilt biological traits that define us. Nobody is born Steve Jobs or JFK or a quarterback. That is something that you have to become. But hey, you being brainwashed as pretty much any man who would actually click on a video with this title or any other video feeding the YouTube algorithm, spinning up the views of channels that live off the lack of personal satisfaction of incels or otherwise highly stressed and unfulfilled man. Before you throw a tantrum down in the comment section about your truth, let's venture on a journey of discovery and examine the validity of these misguided concepts, pretending to describe the male personalities while essentially reducing them to some nonsensical definitions. Ever watch a movie and think, wow, that hero is just so cool and brave. I wish I could be like them. I bet you have, and you're not alone. It's easy to get caught up in the fantasy of characters that have been designed and destined for greatness, like a regular girl marrying a prince just because she's so good, so sweet, and so pretty. But let's face it, that's not how real life works. Sure, it's fun to watch Iron Man fly around in his suit, but in real life, a fancy suit won't protect you from getting hurt on the inside. If you fall from 10,000 feet, you're going to be soup inside that suit. These movies and stories are just for entertainment, to inspire or exaggerate, not to represent reality. So why do we love these fantasy tropes so much? Maybe it's because we can imagine ourselves as the chosen ones, as the heroes of our own stories, reducing masculinity into some rigid hierarchy composed of alpha, beta, and sigma males, which are there only so that men can understand and accept their place in society, without ever considering themselves as, human beings with unlimited potential. It's all bullshit. I mean, take for instance the idea of a sigma male. Where does it even come from, and what makes it so stupid? Well, okay, before we talk about sigma males, let's talk about alphas, because they came first. Now, back in the day, people used to think that there was an alpha wolf who was in charge of the entire pack. But as it turns out, that's not really true. This idea came from a scientist named Rudolf Schenkel, who studied wolves, but he studied them in a zoo in Switzerland. He noticed that they seemed to be the top dog in the pack, which he called the alpha. But later on, another scientist named David Mack studied wild wolves. He studied them in their natural environment, and he found out that things were not so simple, that it was slightly different. It turns out that the wolf packs are more like a big family where everyone has their own unique role to play. They don't have a clear-cut hierarchy where one wolf is the boss who's responsible for everybody else. Instead, they work together to take care of each other and to make sure that the entire pack survives. Basically, Schenkel had observed wolves in what could be akin to a prison rather than reality. Every wolf was from a different pack. So while the idea of the alpha wolf might sound cool, it's not actually how things work in the real world. Wolves are much more complex and much more interesting than we used to think. And the same thing applies to humans. In reality, wolf packs are similar to families. They are essentially families with parents and children. Yep, parents. Parents are those who go out and hunt for food to feed their children, to feed their pups. They're the pack leaders, just like your parents. Or for instance, you, if you're a parent, you go out, you make money, and you make sure that everybody gets enough to eat and that is taken care of. That is who the pack leader is. But some packs have a more complex structure, yet they all have one thing in common. Can you guess what? Family love. It's not all about cutthroat competition, you know? In a way, just like the idea of the survival of the fittest does not mean your strength, your speed, your cunning personality, but your ability to procreate, to successfully pass on genes and ensure the success of your progeny, the meaning of the leader wolf has also been skewed by the mainstream media. Now, this idea of a hierarchy also found its way into dog training, as one would expect, where people thought they needed to dominate their furry friends. They believed that by punishing them, they could essentially show them who the boss is in a pack. But guess what? That didn't work out so well, did it? People have been taught to literally roll the pups on their side or on their backs to show their dominance. However, when it comes to wolves, they don't typically do that. In nature, instead the younger ones or the submissive animal does it on their own. Wolves and dogs, they do have sense of hierarchy, but it's not about being a jerk to everybody else. Wolves and dogs do have a sense of hierarchy in terms of their relationships and the roles they all play, as their compassion towards everybody around them. It's all about respect that is based on trust rather than respect that is based on fear. Now, when it comes to us, human beings, the alphas, the concept of alpha makes even less sense. It's important to remember that social hierarchies are complex and dependent on context. It's all about context, always, rather than just some singular overarching rule. While biology may play a role in determining one's status in various hierarchies, it's not the only factor at play. Take the example of overweight people. What was once seen as a sign of wealth and access to good food and general security in life is now viewed as a sign of poor diet in the Western world. The reality is that status is a zero-sum game, meaning that in order for one person to rise, others must fall. If you become too preoccupied with labeling others as above you or below you, it can quite literally lead to personal insecurities and an overly competitive mindset, which is never a good thing. Pretty much every great leader in ancient times likened themselves to a deity on earth. Why? Well, personal insecurities. These were people who became so obsessed with climbing the hierarchy that in order to be the top of the top, they essentially needed to be gods. If you take this mindset to the extreme, you'll either have to accept a lower status or view yourself as a godlike figure. So it's either beta or god. Instead of focusing on climbing the hierarchy, perhaps it's better to focus on building strong and meaningful relationships with others and finding your own fulfillment outside of the status-seeking behaviors. So what about Sigma males? Where does Sigma male fit in? Where does it come in? How does it fit into the general narrative? Well, the concept of a Sigma male is more recent development compared to the alpha trope. Essentially, a group of individuals came to believe that all men exist in a hierarchy where the alphas hold the top position. They are the top dogs, which is already an incorrect assumption. However, they eventually realized that constantly provoking conflicts with others in order to win and prove their status as the alpha was just way too tiring. This belief, besides not being consistent with human culture, is not even consistent within the behavior of chimpanzees or bonobos, who are our closest relatives in the wild. According to the definition, Sigma males are mysterious. They are the enigmatic figures who don't need anyone else to have a good time. They're the lone wolf, if you like. They are comfortable in their own skin and they enjoy their own company more than anybody else's. They're the quiet ones in the room, often mistaken for alphas, but that's not quite it. They are not alphas. Sigmas have their own style, their own way of looking at the world. They're not interested in being at the top of any hierarchy because they prefer to avoid it altogether. They're just too cool. If you're wondering who could embody such an intriguing character, look no further than John Wick. I mean, it kind of makes sense. Who wouldn't want to be as cool and composed as this legendary assassin, right? So basically what they're saying is that Sigmas are essentially introverted alphas. This gives man the chance to climb to the top of the hierarchy without the need for loud, boisterous behavior that is reminiscent of the Chad. It's a unique way of looking at masculinity, and it offers a refreshing alternative to the traditional alpha male stereotype. That being said, it's just a band-aid for all insecure men. It's the participation medal. Essentially, anyone who is introverted and shy, sitting in a corner of a room at a party, or is unable to engage in a meaningful conversation, the guy who fails at relationships or dating because nobody gets them, can now call themselves Sigma male. But the fact remains that reality is not a movie. Reality does not work like that. You know, you cannot go to a social gathering and stand there all mysterious, brooding, hoping that women will fall head over heels for your mysterious charm, because that's never gonna happen. They won't even notice you. You are quite literally gonna be the weirdo in the corner, not some enigmatic stranger. As far as I'm concerned, the concept of a Sigma male is an even bigger bullshit than Alpha and Beta one, which actually had some kind of logic to it. Sigma is, as I've said, the participation medal, the fix it all and make every insecure man feel great about themselves solution. You see, the concept of alpha males has become so deeply rooted in toxic masculinity circles that its adherents are quite literally unable to let it go. While these individuals admire alphas, they also define them in a manner that renders them undesirable. One wouldn't aspire to be that sort of alpha or even associate with them. No one likes Chad. It's time that we abandon these cliches, right? Well, I wish, but I'm sure that you won't. If you already accepted the ideas of hierarchy of man as the natural order of things, it may be tough to simply give it up and be like a normal person. You're more likely to continue being a slave to this subculture of toxic masculinity belonging to the territory of the pickup artists, red pill channels, MGTOW channels that only serve to encourage you to box yourself in and watch their shit to give them more ad revenue. Somehow this idea got so tangled up with guys being jerks to each other, all to fit into a mold that nobody actually needs. The original alpha wolves were just pairs of males and female leaders, but when people tried to apply the same thing to humans, it got all twisted up. Sure, we humans have a sense of status, but it's not as simple as alpha or beta or whatever. You might be the boss at work, but you may be a total goofball in your friend group. And that's perfectly fine. It's okay. You don't need to constantly measure yourself against everyone else or try to be a big shot to prove something. It's not about measuring dicks, is it? Not all the time. Not to mention, it quickly starts being even more complicated when you start talking about it in terms of high value and low value men. I mean, if you're part of some church, your value and status would be measured by completely different ideas than if you're part of some, let's say, Hells Angels biker gang. It's like trying to fit into a puzzle where the pieces are constantly changing. You might want to date someone who seems out of your league, but does that actually mean that you're not good enough? No, absolutely not. You can still be happy and content without obsessing over who's on the top or a bottom of some imaginary hierarchy that not everyone even agrees on. Not everybody is even consistent in their opinion. It's time to embrace your own unique personality. All the amazing things that make you you. You don't need to be the alpha, beta, or sigma male to be successful, happy, or loved. So forget about these made-up categories and just focus on being the best version of yourself. After all, isn't that what really matters? If you need to figure out how to do that, then check out this video up here. If it's not there yet, then we haven't published it yet. So watch out for the premiere next Wednesday. Alright, until next time. Bye.